You're the live band.
I'm the live bander. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama,
Vaishnavat Puramansa Pariprajaka Ashto Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Welcome to our Thursday night Istagosthi. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dhatati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Gaganatan Vitam Stam Savivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deen Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishab Hanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hodi Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, thank you again. A special welcome to Lakshmi Moni and to Apurva and Kamalani and to Haridas Prabhu. And as usual, and to our small gathering here in Parsippany, New Jersey. And as usual, on Thursdays, any question you'd like to ask or any topic you'd like to bring up, that's what we do on Thursday nights. So I wonder what kind of thoughts or issues or questions might be bubbling up.
In the interest of getting things started, Maharaj, Hare Krishna, I had one question. I was thinking about this recently. This is regarding the Pitri Loka.
Pitri Loka, oh yes.
We hear that those who worship the forefathers go to the planet of the forefathers. So I was thinking how, well, depending on how you live your life, that creates your destination. And is there a single planet that all the forefathers go to? Is it like an actual location, or is it just the principle that you follow the path of your forefathers if you worship them?
Well, I've always wondered about Pitri Loka myself. As far as I've seen in all the literature, it's a particular planet. In fact, its location, if I remember, is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is in the universe, down, as I recall. So it is a specific geographic location. But of course, when one starts to wonder, well, wait a second, everyone's a forefather. Everyone who's departed and had offspring is a forefather. So then what qualifies one particularly for Pitri Loka? That I don't know. But there is, it does appear that there's a particular planet, Pitriloka, and we could look up its location in 5th canto. It's not just a concept.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Lakshmi Muni, was that a hand or you're just?
Yes, it was a hand. I have a question.
Okay.
Repeatedly in my readings in different places in the Bhagavatam, as well as Bhagavad Gita, we hear about the universal form, the elements of the material energy. The universal form is presented in the Bhagavatam so many different times in so many different ways. And yet, I have to tell you, it's not one of my favorite parts of the Bhagavatam also. But at the same time, I understand that it's an essential ingredient to qualify to get to the end of the Bhagavatam, to understand one's, the intimate relationships with Krishna. One has to first get it, that he's God, and that that he could do what he wants. At the same time, we understand that the goal in Krishna consciousness is to come to a level of not remembering that Krishna is God. You know, we hear, especially now, the glories of Mother Jasoda, who bound baby Krishna with her affection. And even though she had every opportunity, even looking at his mouth and seeing the universal form, to understand that he was God, she just saw him as her son and uninterested. So how do we get from that? First of all, why do we have to hear that over and over again? And then when we finally understand it, how do we get rid of it?
Yeah, why do we have to go through all this lower level stuff, as it were, personality of Godhead? And then at some point, if we hope to reach the level of spontaneous love, how do we get rid of everything we learned? This is, of course, relevant to the section of Srimad Bhagavatam that we're reading on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the 10th canto. And just in the verse that's passed, or in the verses that have passed, we find that the pure devotees are not so interested in the universal form. After Shukadeva Goswami describes it, he says that he describes it, in fact, in its gross and then more subtle aspects. And says the pure devotees this is not what they're after, but still he describes it. And
it's described again and
Chakravarti.
It's described again and again.
Yeah, again and again. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that for the neophyte devotees to hear about the universal form is as beneficial as it is for the advanced devotees to hear about more advanced topics of the personality of Godhead. We're in relationship with the material energy, and therefore to hear about the material energy in relationship to the personality of Godhead purifies our consciousness. That's the understanding that we're given, that's what's told to us. So, we might like to be more advanced, but we have this persistent relationship with the material energy, a persistent tendency to see it as ours in some way. At least this portion of it is mine, that portion of it is mine. And so to really understand it as Krishna's energy, to really see it in relationship to Krishna is purifying for us. That's how it's presented. Hare Krishna, come on in. As far as how to get rid of it, like Prabhupada says, Mayavad is trouble in the beginning and
you're frozen.
Fuzzy, impersonal, absolute, and hard at the end because you can't get rid of this persistent addiction to impersonalism. But as far as I can understand, as one advances in devotional service, Krishna consciousness, then Yoga Maya comes into play. Daivamat Prakritim Ashrita one takes shelter of the internal energy. And when one comes under the shelter of the internal energy, then she does the needful. For Yashoda Mai, the internal energy is acting in such a way that even though she sees the universal form, she thinks, all right, enough of your nonsense. So I think this is one of our lesser worries, how we're going to get free from admiration or reverence for the personality of Godhead, provided that we take the path of attraction to Krishna's Vrindavan activities, the activities of the devotee. If we take shelter of the devotees who are in that relationship, then we expect all help in coming to that platform in the mature stage. Thank you.
I hadn't thought of Yoga Maya.
Ah.
I was thinking in a discussion I was having on this topic this morning, I was thinking that, sometimes you meet somebody and you're attracted by some Aishwarya because they're rich, or they're famous, or they're extremely good looking or whatever. And then you get to meet them and either you realize they're a jerk and you reject all those qualities, or you get to know them as a person and those qualities become unnecessary in the relationship. So that was how I reconciled it in my mind. But the idea of Yoga Maya getting involved is also something I hadn't considered. So
and the thoughts that you expressed about it are also very nice. We become attracted to Krishna's personal form in his Vrindavan dealings, then it's like we forget. As we forget, I like that. You be attracted to someone because they're rich or handsome, but then we forget, this person is just so nice. Thank you. Well, we have Lalita Prasad has a question, and then Tulsi Priya.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Kishori Dasi. Dandavat pranams.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question about the nectar of devotion. It's in chapter 31, which is titled Additional Symptoms. It's just a couple sentences, but I'll go ahead and read them. It says, one devotee tried to console a kadamba tree when the tree was lamenting because Krishna had not touched even its shadow. The devotee said, my dear kadamba tree, don't be worried. Just after defeating the Kaliya snake in the Yamuna River, Krishna will come and satisfy your desire. This is an instance of inappropriate hopelessness in ecstatic love for Krishna. And my question is why is it inappropriate that the kadamba tree is lamenting like this?
Well, inappropriate only in the sense of course, I'd have to really look at the verse and see what, the Sanskrit, as far as I could understand it, or as far as someone could explain it to me. But I suspect that it's inappropriate because, hey, don't worry, Krishna is going to take care of you. He is going to fulfill your desire. So inappropriate in that sense. But yes, these feelings that of being inadequate or disappointed are ecstatic feelings in Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, they're not inappropriate to be to have fear for Krishna's welfare, or to be disappointed, or to be angry. Or these are all called vyabhichari, disturbing symptoms, but of devotional service. So they're accepted. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Tulsi Priya, and then Apurva Kamalini.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was also appreciating what Lakshmi Moni Mataji was saying about, being attracted because of some sort of quality and then getting to know the person. I was also thinking how we're in the position currently in the material world because we've forgotten our actual position, or we don't understand our actual position. And it's sort of like a Russian, ontological Russian nesting doll. You know, ultimately Krishna sees Mother Yashoda as his mother, but his actual position is that he is God, and she's not God. And so if we don't recognize Krishna as God, how can we possibly even get to the point where we would love him for himself? You can't love somebody if you don't accept them for who they are. But if you accept them for who they are, then you're able to appreciate them as they are, how they see themselves. Does that make sense?
Oh, perhaps.
I was thinking it differently, and it came out completely differently from what I was thinking. I guess Krishna is God, and we're his servants. And if we're sufficiently purified and properly situated, then as you brought up Yogamaya, then Yogamaya takes away that understanding, because it's the foundation is there.
The understanding is still there that I'm Krishna's servant.
Yeah.
It's not formal.
Right.
Yashodamaya doesn't forget at any moment that she's Krishna's servant.
Right.
But being Krishna's servant for her doesn't mean like a court attendant. Mm-hmm. It means that she's always absorbed in serving Krishna.
Right.
Protecting with protective feelings of love for Krishna. We think of service as being something formal or something, something formal, but to be and being a servant is like a particular position of subordination. But actually, Yashodamaya is in the superior position, and still she's a servant. Mm-hmm. She's a servant in the superior position. That's Vatsalya. Yeah. She remains a servant, but not as a subordinate. Krishna is the subordinate, but Yashodamaya is his servant.
Yeah. So it's her particular flavor of love for him that sort of defines the relationship in a way, right? Because
yes,
in the absolute sense, Krishna is God, but because of her love, she doesn't.
In the absolute sense, also Krishna is the son of Yashodamaya.
Yes, of course.
It's not
she forgets he's
that
God.
Being God is the most important thing.
Yeah.
He happens to be God, but in Vrindavan, no one really cares about that. In the absolute sense, he's Krishna. He's the son of Nanda Maharaj. He's all of those things, and he's also God. Mm-hmm. But for us, he's God. He also plays as the son of Yashodamaya, all of those things. So it's from our position that being God is the more important thing. But for Brijvasis, he may or may not be God. That doesn't matter very much.
But would you say that because we have not developed our love for Krishna, we cannot see beyond? In other words, in one sense, we've denied his godhood, which is why we're floundering in the material world. And on the other sense, if we recognize that, then that's a purification, where we remember our place again, and then that gives the opportunity for love to develop, so that we can have that relationship where we're either superior or equal or whatever. And yeah, I just feel like it's like the whole material world exists to remind us what we've forgotten. But when you remember, then the real relationship has the opportunity to flourish.
Yes.
Right.
There's two kinds of forgetfulness of Krishna, or of Krishna's position. And one is what we see in Vrindavan, that out of love for Krishna, they forget that he's God. They don't care that he's God. They don't recognize that he's God. Then there's the other kind where we don't want to hear that he's God. That's the material forgetfulness. We're envious, and we don't want to hear that anyone but us is the enjoyer. We want to be the enjoyer. So that's the diseased condition. So both conditions, forgetfulness is there in the liberated souls and in the conditioned souls, but it's a very different kind of forgetfulness. Purva Prabhu. And Kamalini. You're muted.
Thank you. It's a rather mundane question, I think, but I'm wondering, I have this like pain in my leg for a couple of months and getting a little bit worse. But I was thinking, is it better to just tolerate rather than trying to alleviate the pain, because I put these lotions and I do exercise and I use infrared warmth, but I thought since it is tolerable, would that be like good for purification to just tolerate suffering, when it is tolerable rather than trying to mitigate it?
I'm about to set myself up for being sued for giving medical advice.
That's okay. I won't hold you liable.
You have to
Okay,
sign
you're
a
unchanged.
release. You have to sign a release paper.
Yeah.
I think about that sometimes too. There's a certain, by tolerating, we're reducing our the reactions of past impious activities. So in that sense, tolerating is good. Let me, rather than trying to alleviate or get free from my material miseries. All right, I'm paying my dues. Good. So there is that sense, and then there's the other side where we think, well, I have service to do, and this is getting in the way.
Mhm.
So if I can straighten this out, or reduce it, or do something about it, well, then I'll be more fit to serve. There's also this is just becoming intolerable. I got to do something about this. I mean, we're not always on the level of pure devotional considerations, but sometimes it comes to, we just are having a hard time, and these things. Again, it comes to really that I'll be in a better position to think about Krishna if I can do something about this. So these are like competing concerns. How much do I ignore, and how much do I try to remedy? And I suppose we each have to decide that for every given issue. As devotees, I think we have a natural tendency to ignore, which is spiritually good and medically not so good.
Yeah.
But so we could choose which you'd rather favor at any moment, your spiritual welfare or your medical welfare, and sometimes they go together, and sometimes they don't. I don't have a bright line answer. Anyone else want to contribute something on this? I'm not the. Do we have a second opinion? Yes. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. Am I unmuted now? Yeah.
You're good.
I would just say that to look at to the cause, to see if trying to mitigate it is really going to do anything. Because I know when you're sick, sometimes you have when you're a devotee especially, you have as many doctors as you have friends. And therefore you get as many advices to get well as you have friends. And many of them are, I don't want to say useless because that's offensive, but useless, and no matter how many you do, it doesn't make a difference. So for me, there's life, and then there's quality of life. And as you said, it interferes with service, but also have to see if there is a way to make it better. Our godbrother Brajendra Nandana Prabhu was just recently diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he's decided not to mitigate it at all because basically mitigation isn't going to make a significant difference.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in Dallas many years ago, we had one devotee there, maybe someone knows him, near Nashapur, who died of leukemia. And he was very, very ill, and he was definitely quite on the way to leaving his body. And his parents came to the Dallas temple, and they wanted to take him to some kind of a place where they would do something. It was a long time ago, so cure wasn't as advanced as it is now, if it's advanced. And Jagadish was there, and Prabhupada was there. And so the parents, they told Jagadish they wanted to take him out of the temple because the doctors said that they could give him normal life for a little while. Prabhupada said, normal life for a little while. He said, normal life is life without death. Can they give him life without death? Better he just stays here and chants Hare Krishna. So it kind of depends if you can really fix it, if you can make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a practical consideration. At some point, even my mother left in June. She'd suffered a spinal fracture at the age of 97 and wound up in hospital. And my sister and my nephew were, seeing to her care. And at one point, my nephew was talking about rehab, because the doctors could, she'd lost movement in her right hand and so on. And the recovery track is exercises, rehab, special attention. When they brought that up to her, she ordered him out of the room. She decided, she'd already decided that it was time to check out, and she didn't want to hear it. And when I spoke to the doctor, he confirmed it. He said, right choice, the right choice. Well, let's see. We have a queue of hands and comments. Well, I'm going to skip a comment from. Well, there's Haridas has a comment and Prabin has one. Haridas, etan vibhutim yogam cha mama yo veti tattvataha, so vikalpena yogena yujate natra sankshaya. One who's factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. I think that's in relation to Lakshmi Moni's topic from before, that by becoming aware of Krishna's opulences, we come to unalloyed devotional service. That's nice. If that's not the context, you can let me know, but I think it is.
It is.
Yeah. Prabin has a comment, which I'm going to skip over because Sharanagatis is relevant. I'm going to come back to rather, because Sharanagatis is relevant to the present topic. It also seems that our human body is a blessing from Krishna, and we are perhaps obligated to stay as healthy as possible to serve. Yes, the human body is our boat for crossing over the ocean of material existence. So Prabhupada said, as far as possible. That was his frequent phrase that he would use. As far as possible, we'll try to keep the body going. And we saw that in Prabhupada's example. He didn't just ignore everything, but he ignored a lot. There was a lot that he would just tolerate and not give much attention to. And then there were sometimes he would give attention. And it would usually be sort of simple attention. He didn't have much patience for diets, for example, and all sorts of other things. But obligated to stay as healthy as possible. Yes, that's the phrase, as healthy as possible. What's possible, you'll have to see. But just staying as healthy as possible, again, it's a question at what cost? Because we know people who stay as healthy as possible and they have nothing else going on in their life except staying as healthy as possible. So they have no life except the life of trying to stay alive or the life of trying to stay healthy. What's the use? Jivasya tattva jigyasa, one should try to stay alive and healthy so that one can become Krishna conscious. Otherwise, what's the use? Better to be unhealthy and die, to put things strongly. But yes, while we're going, it's good for us to keep going and as far as possible, in the phrase that both you and Prabhupada have used, as far as possible, keep things going. Let's see. I see hands, but I'm sticking here with the comments just for a moment because they're relevant, just to stay on topic here. And I'm going to expand this box. Okay. Then Tulsi Priya comments, to hell with the starvation committee. Srila Prabhupada said when devotees tried to keep him on a diet. Yes, that was in New York in 1968. Yes. Okay. Example of Tat Kalika, Sankarshan says, you must learn to distinguish between the two. The two, Sankarshan, you want to?
There's a reference before that. Got to read up a little bit. You got the whole.
Okay. So you're okay.
That was that.
So that's a topic I haven't come to yet. All right, clear. We have Lalit Prasad Prabhu waiting patiently. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Yeah, I had a gallbladder removed, and in the process, the surgeon nipped my intestines, and instead of being a 2-hour procedure, it turned out to be 3 months rehab, and there was nerve damage. Anyway, make a long story short, it hurt when I walked. My right leg was in deep pain. So when I went to therapy, one observation that a very good therapist made was that the gait, the way that I was walking, was not right. I was throwing the leg out. So he gave me an exercise by which I started forcing myself to walk properly. Okay, so the point that I'm making is that it wasn't, who's to blame? Blame this. I was going to, some people told me sue the surgeon. It was my fault that I ended up with a gallbladder issue because of my eating habits. So those had to be addressed. And a lot of times it's our misuse of Krishna's body, because this is not my body. This is Krishna's body. And I can use it in the service of, cleaning the bathrooms like I do in the temple, or, cleaning the temple. So if my legs are working properly, I can probably clean the temple a little bit better this weekend. So it's to treat your body. And now I think it was Sanatana Goswami who used to go through a lot of austerities. And I think Chaitanya addressed that issue, that, actually Krishna was bothered by such austerities, him sitting out in the sun and Krishna having to come and get an umbrella, and, while he can be doing other things and having to take care of his basically unnecessary austerities. So there has to be a fine balance. And don't forget, this is Krishna's body. It's a fine car, and take responsibility for it. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. When you were talking earlier, reminded me, especially since you ended with responsibility, when we get in trouble, either we get some disease or some medical procedure fails or causes more trouble, we immediately look toward who's responsible. That's our American, who do we sue? We're immediately off to the lawyer because it's somebody's fault. And rarely do we reflect on the understanding that it's our fault. It's our fault if even if the surgeon missed and what have you, that was our karma. And Prabhupada told that to one of our devotee friends, that, don't blame the person who delivers your karma. He had some money stolen. Prabhupada said, don't blame the person who's delivering your karma. It's our fault. So that's. But yes, thank you for those points. Because I take Tulsi Priya, I take your questions and thoughts a lot. So I'm going to. Whoops! Hold on a second. I just made my chat box disappear unintentionally. Let me. And now it doesn't want to come back. Okay. A second. Oh dear. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So Maharaj, as you said, we have to believe that that's our karma and we are the responsible. That's very deep understanding. But some people doesn't believe that. They said,
Some people don't believe that it's their karma. Yes, of course. A lot of people don't believe that it's their karma. The courts are full of people who don't believe that it's their karma.
Right. So
But
how can we make them understand?
How can you make them understand? Well, you can't make them. You can give them the opportunity. Whether they understand or not is up to them. But therefore, we have our books, we have our preaching, we have our chanting to try to enlighten them and us. Prabhupada said the books are not just for them. Okay. Regardless of how badly my chat box is managed here at the moment, I have Prabin and I have Sankarshan. Okay, Sankarshan Prabhu is raising the more or less eternal issue of the unfortunate fall of the jiva, or the eternally fallen condition. And that's number one, sort of a perennial topic. And number two, one that we're running out of time to deal with. And I can't see the time because somehow I've entered full screen, but yeah.
7:41.
Yeah, I would. Okay, I think I'm not going to deal with that right now, not because I don't want to, but just because I don't think we can do it justice at the moment. Now, let me again. Tulsi Priya says, okay, this is Tulsi Priya's coming in on topic. So my feeling is, if we consider the body a vehicle, we will do whatever is necessary to maintain it and optimize its performance, but only as far as necessary to do our service and get from point A here to point B, back to Godhead. We may need a Ford pickup or a Toyota Camry to do service, but we don't need a Lamborghini. I'm glad you think that way. I'm sure your husband's also glad you think that way. Jivasya tattva jigyasa nartoyas jeha karmabhi. Prabhupada translate that with his typical keep life and soul, body and soul together. We should do as much as we need to maintain the body for the service of Krishna. I think we've all agreed on that, and it's just a question of what we think is necessary, and that may again not decided here. Now, I'd love to get these boxes out of here, but I can't because of issues that I can't handle now. Okay. All right, so since I don't see more hands, Sankarshan and Prabin both have something here. Let me just see. If I've skipped over. Okay, Prabin was first, and maybe it's shorter. One devotee has a dilemma. Guru A is very affectionate to me. By his presence, I get a spiritual vibration, and my consciousness rises. But Guru B has very trained disciples. His system is very strict, and his disciples are very much mature. But he has no one-to-one time for his disciples. So I suppose the question is there, then who do I choose? I'm in a dilemma here. That's not a question we're in a position to answer for him. We can say, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam, you should know what the qualifications of Guru are. You should be sure to accept someone who's qualified. But then what you're looking for in terms of who inspires you or what you think is going to best help you in your spiritual life, we're not really in a position to say. I'm reminded of different colleges. There's big ones and small ones, and there's more, some stress community and some stress other aspects of education. Some have a department that you're really interested in, or whatever it is. You have to decide. Finally, you have to choose one school or another. That's the final thing. If you sit there forever saying, well, should I go to A or should I go to B? Should I go to A? Should I go to B? And then you die before you go to either one. That's not going to help you. So at some point, we have to decide. And again, I don't think we can make that decision for him. He's in one sense fortunate to have a choice, two presumably highly qualified spiritual masters. But I sympathize. Making decisions can be difficult, and especially for people like me, but I don't have a solution for him, except depend on Krishna and pray to Krishna that please help me make the right choice. And of course, that I've accepted one guru doesn't mean that I can't get spiritual benefit from the other, but the relationship will be different. Okay, we still have 13 minutes. We will look briefly. Oh, okay, we have a live question. They're all live, but a local live question.
They just asked that, see, this is the goal that Prabhupada said also to take care of our body, so that because this is the source to.
Our goal is to take care of our body because that's what we serve with.
Yeah. But
yes.
My question is, some people have a tendency to look after other people a little bit more than other person or like a friend, and you worried about it, like in respect to that, you unwanted bring some stress in your life, because if you're gonna take care of more people or think about more about those. So, and on the same hand, there are people who are, let's say, single, worried free, and this, they have their tendencies like, you are better off in that way. You have less to worry. So is that a good, like, family situation, or in where you have more relations to the people, you're more involved over there? How to make yourself a little bit detached from that angle, so that you could focus more on personal priorities. I shouldn't say personal priorities, but how you detach yourself. So one person is more doer and the other is ignorant or self-centered or self-focused. And the person who are self-focused and self-centered tend to do better by research.
I think I'm getting a little lost in this question.
So what I'm saying is that should the person who is more doer or who is more involved in the family has to ignore the family member, or has to ignore the friends?
There's a person who's in family life,
yes,
and therefore he has to give attention to the welfare of the members of his family.
Remember, like everybody does it, but some people have more
some people give more attention to their family, and some people give less attention to their family.
Yes, in the research says who pay less attention are always better off.
And research
Yeah.
shows that those who pay less attention to family affairs
Or friend affair, or, they're better off.
they're better off. I guess they have
In
less,
terms of their health.
their health is better and so on. Well,
How you make that balance here?
I think you should send those people over to us because they might like our philosophy and we also like theirs. The general teaching in Srila Prabhupada's literature is that we should give less attention to our family. No one needs to be told, or rarely do we need to be told, spend more time on sense gratification. Our tendency is towards sense gratification. Rarely do we need to be told you should be more attentive to material affairs because we're naturally attentive to them. Sometimes, yes, actually, sometimes like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would, or Krishna, he tells Arjuna, you have to be attentive to fighting. Don't walk out. So both things are there, responsibility on one side and detachment on the other. So the art is to be, or the emphasis is on being Krishna conscious and being responsible. Being Krishna conscious and being responsible. If I'm Krishna conscious, I'll be aware of my responsibilities, and I'll also be aware of the limits of my responsibilities and the limits of what I can do, however responsible I am. There's certain things that are not, I can't save my wife from dying. I can't save anyone from dying. If someone is destined to suffer, I can't save that person from suffering by, getting the best physicians or getting the best this or that. Karma will act, and there's nothing I can do about that. So that's an understanding. And the other understanding is that my duty is to finally to serve Krishna and not to be day and night simply absorbed in the welfare of my family members. So those are two thoughts. There was a third thought that was in there. Let me just see if I lost it or not. Yes, that the real benefit for my family members is for them to be Krishna conscious. So that's the most important thing for me to see to in regard to them. That doesn't mean that I neglect their material needs, but it means I know what their real need is. My real duty as a husband is to see that my wife goes back to Godhead. My real duty as a father or mother is to see that my child goes back to Godhead. That's my prime duty. And if I forget that, the whole thing's really a loss. My kid got all the video games to keep him happy. He went to a good university. He got a good job. He married a good girl. And he wasted his life and came back again to do the whole thing, another round. So what's the value of that? I spent all this time on their education and on their health and everything, but they didn't go anywhere. Their life was a failure. So my prime duty is to see that everyone is making advancement in Krishna consciousness. And then in that context, I see to the material necessities. And if I put Krishna consciousness first, the material necessities become less also. If I neglect Krishna consciousness, there's no limit to the material. I need this, we need that, we need this, we need that. But if the wife is Krishna conscious, then she doesn't need as much. If the husband is Krishna conscious, he doesn't need as much. If the children are Krishna conscious, they don't need as much of unnecessary necessities. Prabhupada once told Hridayananda Maharaj that as GBC member, you should see that everyone is following the regulative principles. and chanting Hare Krishna. He said, then management is at your fingertips. If you're trying to manage a group of people who are not Krishna conscious, your management is going to be really hard. If everyone's Krishna conscious, your management's going to be a lot easier. So the same thing that goes for a temple goes for a family also. If the family members are all looking toward Krishna, if they're all advancing in Krishna consciousness, your family responsibilities become a lot easier. It also becomes easier, by the way, to retire from family life at the appropriate time, because everyone's Krishna conscious and they see, yes, that's what we have to do. Otherwise, if we're not Krishna conscious, we never want to let go, however much, however miserable what we're holding on to is, we don't want to let go. So those are some thoughts. Does that answer your, okay.
That was a little question. I wasn't actually in the park. There was a ball sitting, and ignored ball. My question is, if you find something on the road which is either thrown by people, let's say, money is a very easy answer. I want to say, like, there was a ball, very nice, I liked it, but I saw that 3 days ago. Also, I saw it 4 days ago. Also, so it means someone just ignored it and left it. I could, I want to take that home, but when I did it, I said, no, this is not mine. So I left it there.
Yeah.
Can you take it? Let's say, if it is not, it doesn't belong here, but it's thrown away also at the same time.
You don't want to give the example of money because it's too easy, but you were walking past the ball, you saw that it was sort of neglected. You thought, well, maybe I could use it. You left it. Then 3 days later, you saw that it was still there, and still you're wondering, should I take it or not? Maybe you don't need it.
Yes, I could apply that, absolutely, but at the same time,
as you said, it's not yours. And do you really need it?
No.
So if you don't really need it and it's not yours, why take it? If it's something that you're thinking this is Krishna's and it's not being used for Krishna, and I can use it for Krishna, and it's really true, it's not a rationalization of how you really want it and you're going to put a little Krishna varnish on it. But if you're really going to use it for Krishna's service, rescue it essentially from neglect and offer it to Krishna, that's a different thing. But if it's just, well, I could use it, then let it be. It's not yours.
Because it's a broader question. It applies to every little item and every big item.
The same point holds.
Or something. But if it's something which is not,
little or big, if it's not going to, if it's somehow can be dedicated to Krishna, and it's, what would you say, neglected, all right, let me offer it to Krishna. But if it's just for my own convenience or my own interest, then let it sit there. Why should I get it tangled?
That's the exact thought came into my mind when I was about to. I said, anyway, nobody needs it. But if I think it doesn't belong, is it going to some karmic reaction going to come back and say, hey, why did you take it?
You don't get karmic reactions for ignoring. You don't get karmic reactions for ignoring sense gratification. For ignoring the opportunity to acquire unnecessary things, you don't get karmic reactions. Rather, you become, that's recommended. That jivasya, to be satisfied with less. What is that? Yadricha labha santushta in the Bhagavad Gita. A Krishna conscious person is satisfied with what Krishna gives him. He doesn't think, no, I could have this, I could have that, I could get this, I could get that. And then I think, well, even then it extends, well, there's money in the company and they won't miss it. I was seeing someplace that so often embezzlement is going on in companies from people who really think that I'm just borrowing this. And I've worked for the company 15 years and I'm not going to take it, but I need it right now. And they justify it somehow, and then it becomes like their career, embezzling money from the company. So we don't want to be in that mentality. Well, here's something I could use. There's something I could use. But it should be, we should be Krishna conscious, not to increase our unnecessary necessities. But if we want to acquire something, we should acquire knowledge. We should acquire detachment. We should acquire devotional service. That kind of acquisitiveness will be good for us. And I'm afraid that we've run out of time before we get a chance to solve the problem of the fall of the jiva.
If you don't mind, Mataji have one question.
Mataji has one question. Well, I don't mind, but what happens is, and Sankarshan Prabhu, I don't want to ignore your question. If you would, you can hold it till a future opportunity, then we can look at it. I just know that we wouldn't have been able to do it justice today. The time was not there. As for Mataji's question, what I usually do on Thursdays is I end on time. And then since we're still sitting here, the rest of us can still talk about things after we bid everyone else goodbye, which we will now do. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you.
Haribol.
Thank you, Mara.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Prabhupada.
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.